Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan earlier announced an 8-member South African Airways interim board chaired by former Tourism Minister Derek Hanekom. At the same time, Metal Workers Union Numsa, whose members are mainly employees of the carrier, say it was not consulted about the appointments, and we're getting their reaction. And now we're joined by the spokesperson, Phakamile Hlubi-Majola. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Firstly, moments after your statement came out that we've not been informed, Public Enterprises then released the statement. I don't know whether it was the same time, but in terms of whenever they came. But do you think there was an intention to keep this a secret until whatever time, and for what reason?
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to your viewers. Thank you so much for having me on the show. We definitely think that the statement released by the Department of Public Enterprises was in response to what we had sent out earlier, where we were basically exposing the fact that they secretly made this change of the board, that the old board members were fired on the 14th of April and replaced with these people. And interestingly enough, they don't deny any of our statement. And I think one of the questions we should be asking ourselves is, why was it so important for the Department of Public Enterprises to remove this board right now at this time? Because currently what's happening at SAA is there is an audit happening, and it's an audit for the Auditor General. So why would you remove these interim board members who've been in place for the last couple of months during this period when SAA has sort of undergone restructuring and has now been operating? Why would you remove them right now at this time when they should actually be responsible for the work of accounting for the entity? The decision is very suspicious. And as a trade union, we have our own suspicions as to what the motive is for what the minister is doing, particularly at this time.
So, according to the minister, he's announcing a highly skilled and diverse interim board of directors, which marks a significant step forward in the national carrier's ongoing transformation. Could be putting that as a reason why remove the previous board and putting this board now in place. One, they've got a lot of skill that is required, and this is a significant move forward. How would you respond to that?
No, that makes absolutely no sense. I'm sorry, Thabo, but it really doesn't. It doesn't explain that. In the statement, he gives no justification for why those board members were removed in the first place. What were they failing in doing? He doesn't say that. He simply says that they were removed. And as I said, the timing is very convenient because it's happening right in the middle of an audit. And by the way, we shouldn't forget that as we speak, SAA is currently undergoing a transaction where they're going to be sold to a consortium. So again, why remove this board at this time? It is our view as Numsa that the real motive behind this reshuffling is because SAA no longer needs the Takatso consortium to actually play its role as an equity partner. SAA is actually turning around and starting to perform. And there is no justification for Takatso to take over and to be part of this consortium any longer. Yeah. And I think this is the real reason why Pravin Gordhan felt he needed to remove these board members. It is our view as Numsa that he did so because these board members were not working hard enough or fast enough to speed up this very, very dodgy deal, which Numsa has been saying from day one stinks of corruption.
Yeah, I mean, they are almost saying it's still going to happen. I think I heard Derek Hanekom speaking earlier on some of the platforms saying that deal will be finalized in 4 months, actually, is the time that they're giving themselves. Why do you have reason to doubt that?
No, we're saying that there is no need for this deal. We're saying that the previous board knows this, and they were not working fast enough to fast-track this deal, which is dodgy to the highest of heavens. First of all, how do you choose a consortium that has no money, not even a red cent, and you handpick them, because they were handpicked by the minister, by the way, everything about this process of awarding Takatso the right to own shares or to take over SAA has been completely shrouded in secrecy. Nobody knows what due diligence the Department of Public Enterprises, that process, how they arrived at Takatso, why Takatso over other consortiums or other companies was better suited to take over. As I said, they don't even have a red cent to their balance sheet. They're simply being handed an airline. And what's even worse, we don't have financial statements of SAA, not since March 2017. As of March 2017, this airline had over 14 billion rands worth of assets. Now, it suddenly has 3 billion rands worth of assets. What happened to all those assets? We've not had financial statements for many, many years to explain how we arrived at this point. And right in the middle of an audit to the Auditor General, where you have to account for transactions of this nature. By the way, the PFMA is very specific that as you are dealing with an audit, you must account for any transaction. Section 64 speaks about any sale of shares of the entity. So here we are at the point where this is what's happening, and the minister decides to change the board. It's very suspicious.
So the minister speaks about
and as a journalist, all your red flags going off at this point.
So the minister speaks about the foundation that has been laid by the previous board, and saying this interim board is going to be building upon that foundation. What is that foundation? What did this outgoing board do in the time that they've been there?
You should ask the minister, because right now he's the only person who knows. We don't know. As we said, there's no financial statements. What we do know from the information that we've been told by insiders at the highest level is that this airline is doing better than expected. That's what we know. We know that Pravin Gordhan is determined to push through this sale, even though this airline is performing better than expected, and in all likelihood we don't need to have a Takatso anyway. But the fact of the matter is that as we speak right now, there is no information on the Takatso deal. There is no information on the process that was unrolled by the minister to appoint them. And even this decision is very dodgy because, as I said, in terms of the timing, does this mean we are going to get financial statements?
Yeah.
I mean, why would a new board sign off on statements that they know nothing about? You know? So there's a lot more questions than answers. And what's really painful is that Parliament is not doing or playing its role in holding Pravin Gordhan to account for what he's done. The ANC government is not doing or playing its role in holding holding Pravin Gordhan to account. Our state-owned entity, according to media reports, has been sold for 51 rand. 51 rand. And no heads have rolled. Pravin Gordhan has not been fired and has not had to explain himself for such a decision. So I think, yes, definitely, there's definitely a lot that needs to be done as far as holding this minister to account, but it is very unfortunate that the organizations or the bodies that are legally obliged to do that are just not doing their work. And so you have a minister who, as far as we're concerned, is doing as he pleases without having to explain himself to anybody about decisions that are affecting. This is not a spaza shop. This is a state-owned entity which exists because of an act of Parliament.
Absolutely.
It exists because of taxpayer funding, and yet we are in the dark about very, very crucial decisions that the minister is making at a very crucial time. It stinks. The whole thing is rotten.
Phakamile Hlubi-Majola, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. More questions, of course, needing answers there that we'll certainly be putting forward to the authorities.